May the words of my mouth and the meditations of all of our hearts be aligned with you, O God, our rock and our Redeemer. I can just see the animals that Jesus freed running around. Doves dropping bird poop and feathers everywhere. I can hear coins clattering and rolling on the stone floor from the tables he turned in the Temple of Jerusalem. Holy chaos. The Gospel of John is serving us cowboy-esque Wild West Jesus, who is sporting a homemade whip and is going into the temple saying, "Stop it." The animals were being sold in exchange for money for ritual sacrifice, and Jesus wanted people to be able to connect and worship God. But they are distracted. I love this image of Jesus, the one born among animals, who comes to free the animals in the temple to prove a larger point, that the temple was his body, rather than the physical structure in Jerusalem. Jesus sees that the temple hustle and bustle is distracting people's hearts and minds from experiencing intimacy with God. So he demands, using the dramatics of street theater, that they pause and they stop from doing. He clears a way for them to become reoriented and see God in their midst, and perhaps even in the temple of their own bodies. What a shift. As I pause upon my re-entry after maternity leave, I feel a call to deep listening from the heart, rather than having us dream new dreams for our future or cast vision quite yet. From listening deeply about life in the Temple of Orchard Ridge at our leadership Zoom retreat yesterday, I heard about how there is a true feeling of community when you walk in the doors, that people smile at you, and you have a visceral feeling of coming home, a sense of unconditional love and freedom to learn and to explore and to ask questions. I can see the kids holding one another, the big kids holding the little kids on their hips, small children running around freely, nourishing food and friendships. Mission trips that are life-changing, commitments that change us and challenge us and move us out the door and into the world, a place that allows kids to grow to be the best people they can and makes them feel loved and secure in the meantime. God in and through all of the holy chaos that is going on. The feeling that when you come, you're not expected to put away your humanness or your messiness or whatever questions you have about God. You're free to explore, and there is grace for who you are. This is what I heard. 1 year ago, this weekend, was the last time for a whole year that any of us have gotten to experience that in person. Among other losses, so many other losses, we have cleared out of that temple of Orchard Ridge with COVID. We have been cut off from so many things we love, and we have done an incredible job making the most of it all, of being creative in the face of the shutdown. When I looked at the annual report, I was so impressed with all that has been accomplished this year, with how much outreach and education is still happening, almost like we didn't skip a beat. You even hired a new pastor during this time. What would it mean for us now, at the year marking, to pause again, to reflect and remember, to notice in our bodies where we are holding anticipation or grief or dread or anxiety or humor or lightness or hope or excitement. To notice it and to rest again and to bring it to God in a new way this season. Do you remember what it was like? Do you remember washing your mail and your groceries. We had the opportunity to watch spring slowly emerge and in some ways observe the natural world without us. We slowly began after those first few weeks of total lockdown that this wasn't a temporary situation. And with that, we began to process some significant losses as we were cut off from normal life. Do you remember also, in the beginning of the pandemic, during that first shutdown, there were all these stories of animals running loose through the streets, of reclaiming the world as if they rightfully owned it? An article from the New York Times, Carl Zimmer writes, "Last spring, coyotes strolled down the streets of San Francisco in broad daylight. Pods of rarely seen pink dolphins cavorted in the waters around Hong Kong. In Tel Aviv, jackals wandered a city park. A herd of mountain goats looked over a town in Wales. And porcupines ambled through Rome's ancient ruins. As the canals in Venice turned strangely clear, cormorants started diving for fish, and Canada geese escorted their goslings down the middle of Las Vegas Boulevard." These images are striking, leading us to reflect more deeply on what our pause was doing to the body of the earth. We saw maps of the pollution, usually in the air, over China and India, decreasing in a matter of days, with no travel and much less burning of fossil fuel. So significant was this moment. Scientists have named it, calling it the anthropause, with this underlying question and observation about what happens when humans really take a break. So much of what the Bible calls us to is this sort of rest. Taking a break from doing and resting in being. This is the whole message of the theology of Sabbath. And with our Pastor Ken going on sabbatical, we also have the opportunity to discover God's desire for us to cease from doing and to rest, perhaps even in our belovedness. From the second half of Wisconsin native Kitty O'Meara's poem, "And the People Stayed Home," that we reflected on last week, she writes, "And the people healed. And in the absence of people living in ignorant, dangerous, mindless, and heartless ways, the earth began to heal. And when the danger passed and the people joined together again, they grieved their losses and made new choices and dreamed new images and created new ways to live and heal the earth as they had been healed." As we draw near to the journey of Jesus toward the cross during Lent, we draw nearer to the hope of Easter, of living in a healthier world and of healing. But before we get there, I wonder what it would be like for us to pause again in an effort to remember and to heal. To remember Jesus clearing the temple as a way of clearing away all that distracts us from God and God's grace, and to not let this time, these few remaining months, hopefully few remaining months of the shutdown before we're able to be together again, to not slip away without resting from doing, and to just be with the reality of where we are today and all we have endured and learned. To honor the sensation of loss, the ache of our longing to be together, and then to truly pause, to take an anthropause as we did in the beginning, these next months, to rest in the presence of God, to follow Jesus into the inner temple of the body, and to allow the pause to do as it perhaps promises, which is provide an opportunity for us to heal and to reconnect with God. Let it be so. Amen.